One hit is all you need to make the money guaranteed, and you can live off royalties forever. And it makes me wonder, is it just a wonder, or is it one hit thunder?
So Matt, this was my idea. I hit you up. As you know, I'm an Apple Music user. I'm not a Spotify guy. I use Apple Music. And I've been seeing this thing pop up of the Apple Music 100 best albums. And you know, I'm a sucker for a list. And I like to make my own lists. So I thought it would be fun if you and I went through this. And I know I've already looked through the whole list, but I believe you got the number one spoiled, but the rest of it you don't know, right?
Mostly a mystery to me, yeah. So I think you and I are going to go through all 100 of these. We're starting here at 100 with Robin Body Talk, which I don't know this album. Is this the one that has that like dancing? I can't remember what the name of the song is.
Dancing on My Own and Call Your Girlfriend are both on this album. It's from 2010. Those songs are good. I don't know the whole album. I wouldn't have put it on my top 100. We should decide together, would on a collaborative top 100 would this album be on it? And my vote would be no on this one.
My vote will also be no because like I said, I know a song on it. So let's see.
Right. Let's move on.
Tapping across. Oh, is this going to be an issue now? Oh wait, I'm supposed to go this way. Hotel California, the Eagles. Not the biggest Eagles fan. Like the song Hotel California, but I'm gonna if that's how we're doing this, I'm gonna say that this is a no from me, dog.
I would be glad if I never heard the song Hotel California for the rest of my life. So Eagles Hotel California album also would not be on my top 100. We can go right past this one. They're 0 for 2 so far as we're concerned.
Okay. Astro World Travis Scott. Also not a Travis Scott guy. Is the argument, I think I saw someone post explaining this a little bit, that this is supposed to be culturally significant albums, not what their staff's favorite albums were, but the ones that they thought had the biggest cultural impact. And I mean, I guess I could see Travis Scott in that, but I also am glad that it's at the very bottom of the list because I don't think that I would say the Hotel California Eagles album has more cultural significance than Astro World, at least.
Well, this is the album with Sicko Mode on it. If you know one Travis Scott song, you probably know that. But I just personally do not get Travis Scott. It is just not my thing. There's no list of 500 albums that this album would even sniff. So I would say no to this one.
And if I'm seeing this preview correctly, way too low here. We have the Rage Against the Machine self-titled. I mean, I'm glad it's above Travis Scott and Eagles, but 97 seems this is like a top 50 record to me.
Yeah, I mean, the debut album from Rage Against the Machine is what we're talking about. I'm glad it made the list. I mean, you could make an argument for Evil Empire too. I love that album, but this is kind of the album that started it all. This would definitely be on my list. I think I'd agree with you, Matt. This is probably a top 50 album. It's awesome. So good job to the Apple Music staff and artists that contributed to this list and including this at all. So yes. So we got one. We agree with one so far.
All right. We've got Lord, Pure Heroin, which
number 96.
At 96. I actually really like this album. I think that Lord's debut is a very solid release. I think 96 is about a good spot, though. I think that it's definitely, if it's going to be on a list like this, it's definitely in that 90 to 100 range.
I really like Royals. I really like that song Team that are both from this album. She did make a big impact at the time. I didn't celebrate the entire album. I only know the couple singles. I'm fine with it being on here. I'm going to assume that the people that put it on here listened to it a good bit more than I did. So I'm okay with this one.
All right. 95, we have Usher Confessions. If you listen to my review of the Usher halftime show, it's very clear that I'm not a very strong Usher fan. But I mean, for the longevity of his career alone, there should be some Usher represented on here. And Confessions definitely was, that album was massive. I feel like we've done a ton of One Hit Thunder episodes where we're talking about what the Billboard charts were, and they're just like for that like 19 like that 2009 to 2011 range was just song after song from this album.
Yeah, I mean, this is the album with Yeah, Confessions Part 2, Burn, Caught Up. This is a gigantic album. I'm kind of lukewarm on it, but I think it probably does belong here. I think that
If
I'm
you
cool with this one.
if you're gonna put an Usher album on,
Yes,
this is the one. Yeah.
this is the one.
Okay, so here's the first one where I've never heard of this.
Yes, right.
Untrue Burial at 94. Um,
Yeah.
Not for nothing. Like, look, I get it. You and I are both either in our 40s or nearing our 40s, and maybe our fingers aren't fully on the pulse, but we're also two guys who host two different music podcasts. And for a list of 100 significant albums, one of us should be aware of who the
Yeah,
band
this
is.
is complete bullshit. It's a British electronic music producer. I think it might be like a dubstep-ish album. Let's not waste any more breath talking about this. This is dumb.
Okay. So another one I actually don't know at 93, A Seat at the Table, Solage.
Solange, this is Beyonce's
Solange.
sister. You don't know
Oh,
this album?
I don't.
This is really good music. I
Okay.
mean, I can't cite particular songs from it, but I've put this album on before because people raved about it, and it is good, as you can imagine. It's just in the Knowles genes to make good music, I think. So yeah, I'm cool with this one. Top 100 might be a little bit of a stretch, but it's not outrageous.
All right. We've got Tyler, the Creator, Flower Boy. I've always been torn on how I feel about Tyler, but I mean, he definitely it is undeniable that him and the entire like group of rappers that he works with have left a major influence in modern hip hop. So I definitely think that someone should be represented. I'm sure anybody who's listening or watching can let us know if this Flower Boy album is like the
I know
one that
this
should represent
album.
it. Okay.
At 92, it wouldn't be in my top 100. I think it's pretty good for Tyler the Creator, but he's not one of my favorites, but he's obviously creative and good. So I'm fine with this here.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
see. 91. We've got George Michael, Listen Without Prejudice, Volume 1.
What
Chris, do you know which songs are on this one, perchance?
dude, yeah, Freedom 90 is on this. I just can't believe if you're going to put a George Michael album on your top 100, how is it not Faith?
So
Faith,
is this the only George Michael album that makes the list?
spoiler alert, yes. But Faith has Faith, Father Figure, One More Try, Monkey, I Want Your Sex. I think this is right artist, wrong album.
Okay.
Just a mistake.
All right.
Wait,
I think that's a fair assessment. I was like, I'm not even familiar with this album title. Okay. AC/DC, Back in Black. Now we're talking about some classic rock, which I mean, this is the first classic rock since the Eagles on the list, sitting at 90. I mean, this is a damn good album. Like, whether you like AC/DC or not, this has most of the songs you know by AC/DC. It's got obviously the title track, it's got Shook You All Night Long, it's got Hell's Bells. Like, it's kind of stacked with the biggest hits in their career.
yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna put this on anytime soon, but it kind of seems low for what an influential, huge album this is.
This is another one like Rage where this should be in the top 50, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe not
not
too
for me.
high. I don't think too high in the top 50, but absolutely like in that 49-50 range for just influence alone. Now I'm
Yeah.
with you. Like, I'm not the biggest AC/DC fan. I like AC/DC enough. And this is probably the album I would put on if I was going to listen to AC/DC. But yeah, 90's real low for this.
Yeah. What do we got at 89?
Lady Gaga, the Fame Monster Deluxe Edition. And I think the Deluxe Edition part is important because I think you get tracks like Paparazzi and Telephone when you get the deluxe version. I mean, I didn't like Lady Gaga when she first came out. Now I really like what she was doing back then. And the songs that came from the Fame Monster were just like unavoidable party jams for the
Yeah.
entirety of my college experience.
I'm indifferent to Lady Gaga. She's fine. If someone wants to put a Lady Gaga album on here, I guess this is the one. I'm kind of indifferent. Wouldn't be on my top 100, I'll tell you that.
I mean, again, even from an influential stance, I think that she really changed the way pop music was done shortly after this album because it was like she made pop music okay to be weird finally. And
Mm.
then we got more of the underground artists that you and I both like. Nina Simone, I Put a Spell on You. I mean, Nina Simone definitely deserves to be on a list like this. Um, her, I like. I think we've both talked about how like we're not the biggest jazz people, but I love Nina Simone's jazz music. I love listening to how she sings songs like her version of I Put a Spell on You. There's a couple other really good ones. Preacher Man, she does a really good version of. So I'm okay with this being on here, even though it's not a record that I listen to regularly. I mean,
88's fine with me. It wouldn't be on my list just because it's kind of before my time and I'm not familiar with it, but I'm assuming it's really great.
yeah.
We got
87,
it.
we have Massive Attack, Blue Lines. Never got into Massive Attack, but I know how influential and important this album is to like a very specific genre of music. So
Uh,
absolutely, this should be on a top 100 list.
wow.
Just for
Okay.
that alone.
I don't know anything about this band, and they wouldn't even sniff a top 500 for me. So we can keep going.
All right, all right, yeah. No, I for the whole like what the hell is that genre of music that I'm thinking of? Like I'm blanking, but like
Like
stuff like
alt
Portishead.
country.
No, Massive Attack.
Oh,
Massive Attack's like Portishead,
who am I
and
thinking of?
I have no clue. This was like
Oh,
of that like almost indie lo-fi
oh.
type sound.
Okay. I
Um
don't.
Mary J. Blige, My Life. I'm assuming Family. No, I don't think this is the one with Family Affair. What is on this Mary J. Blige
So
album?
this being at number 86, I would have gone with the album What's the 411. That's the album with Real Love on it,
Yeah.
which is the ultimate Mary J. Blige jam. I don't know this album, so obviously it wouldn't be on my list, but she's obviously amazing. I just I when I look at the track list of this album, like I don't know this album.
All right. Well then.
Yeah.
Uh 85, I actually love this album. It would not be in my top 100, but this is Casey Musgraves with Golden Hour. This is kind of that more modern country in the exact same vein as a Maren Morris, like that country star going pop. The song, I think it was the lead sing on this was Butterflies. Great,
Mhm.
great song. Um, Definitely recommend checking out this album if you're not familiar with it, but 85 on a 100 most influential albums list
I
seems
don't think it's most
outrageous.
influential. You keep saying they didn't
Whatever,
say that.
or best out. It's
They're
still
saying best. They're
still
saying
doesn't
best.
still should not be on this list is what I'm saying. I'm feeling
Okay.
like we're getting to that point where there's a lot of albums that I'm thinking we're not going to see on this list.
Yeah, and let's keep something in mind, Matt. Here, they're saying best. They're not saying like you were talking about, like, oh, Travis Scott, he was influential to whatever, but
Yeah.
they're saying best. So I'm not familiar with this album to be able to call it best. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but I do know there are a lot coming up that I am familiar with.
And I can see the sneak preview of the next one here.
Oh
84
boy,
Doggy Style Snoop Dogg. I mean, obviously. This
yeah.
this we did actually coming out soon. Here's a little spoiler for everybody. Coming out soon is a G Funk episode with Warren G. And definitely Warren G was, in my eyes, the guy who created the sound of G Funk, but Snoop Dogg was the guy who perfected that sound, and he did so with this album specifically.
This would be on my top 100. And you know what?
This
I don't
feels
even.
low. I feel like this feels really low to me.
Yeah, I would probably on my list. It would. Oh, you know what? If I was making a list, this probably wouldn't be on it, but I do think it should be on it, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense.
I mean, this album has come up for me when I'm trying to do a list of like 10 greatest I'm leaning on the word influential, but like if I was to do a list of like the 10 most influential rap albums of all time, this would be on that list for sure.
Okay.
Um all right, Patti Smith, Horses. Does this have Because the Night on it?
I don't know. I all I know is that people love this, and I am not familiar with it. A little before my time, and I know it's never too late to check something out. I would say TBD, to be
Okay.
determined if it's on my list, because and I feel like lately, like, doesn't Taylor Swift have a new song where she like says I'm Patti Smith and you're so and so or
I'm sure
whatever?
she does, yeah, because
Yeah,
I think we talked about it on our Taylor Swift album review,
yeah.
but, hey, I like the songs that I've heard by Patti Smith. I'm more of a Patti Smythe fan
Patty
myself.
Smythe. You like her work with Scandal?
Yes, yeah, Warrior,
Yeah. All right.
Goodbye to You. 82, 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. Never liked this album. I bought this album just because I was trying to buy all of the like Rolling Stone 100 greatest albums of all time albums at one point. I remember how massive and beloved this album is, but for the most part, it's like In the Club is great. I like Wangsta. I like
High
21
all the time.
Questions.
I like
But
high all the time.
I mean, this is a I think this album has like something like 24 tracks on it, and I like 3 or 4 of them. Like, it's
Yeah,
a lot.
I understand why it would be on a list. It's the songs are enduring. It wouldn't be anywhere near my list. Sorry, 50 Cent.
Alright, so let's see at 81, Neil Young, After the Gold Rush. This is a good-ass album. I think the opening track on this is Heart of Gold, which is just
Is it?
one of the best Neil I think it might not be the opening track, but I'm pretty sure Heart of Gold is on After the Gold Rush. I could be completely wrong on that,
I
so don't
think you might be wrong about that, Matt.
but
Uh,
either way, I think that this album is an absolute banger. Um, and like I was just about to say that I feel like we've talked about a lot more new than older albums so far on this. So I'm glad to see something from like that 60s, 70s scene like represent it. What is
yeah,
on are you looking it up right now? What's on
that
After the Gold Rush?
Tell Me Why, After the Gold Rush, Only Love Can Break Your Heart, Southern Man, Till the Morning Comes, Oh Lonesome Me, Don't Let It Bring You Down, Birds, When You Dance I Can Really Love, I Believe in You, and Cripple Creek Ferry.
I mean, there's some good songs though. Tell Me Why is one of my favorite Neil Young songs. I love I really like this album quite a bit. But again, I don't know if it would be on my top 100 albums list.
Neil Young is not on my top 100. Cool guy. I think the guy is cool. The music, not so much.
All right. Let's see. Eminem, Marshall Mathers, LP. Not my favorite Eminem record, but I know it's the most important Eminem record, and I know it's a lot of other people's favorite Eminem release. I mean, this album was huge. Like
Yeah, number 80, I guess I'm okay with this. This is Stan, Real Slim Shady. This is what? Is this like
What
the
I
night?
Say I Am is on here too.
Yeah.
And then on the deeper cuts, you get songs like Kill You, which was like pretty well liked Under the Influence, Amityville, which is probably one of my favorite Eminem deep tracks. Like there's not really a skippable song on this album as far as I'm concerned. I think this and the Slim Shady LP, the first two releases of his, are pretty major record label releases of his are pretty perfect in the grand scheme of that era of music.
Wouldn't be on my top 100, I'll tell you that.
This would be on my top 100.
Wow, okay.
Although maybe I would put Slim Shady LP higher, but whatever. So Lana Del Rey, Norman fucking Rockwell. Really have not gotten into Lana Del Rey as much as I should have.
If
So
you
I'm gonna
want
pass
to,
this to
Matt,
you.
if you want to get into Lana Del Rey, you should listen to the album Born to Die. That
Okay.
album is awesome, and this is the album where she does the Sublime cover of Doing Time. That's all
Oh,
I
I've
know.
heard that cover.
I mean, it's a pretty good cover. That's on this, but I just think that Born to Die is a superior album. If I was gonna, I would probably put Born to Die on my lower end of my top 100, but not this album. But okay, right artist, wrong album.
All right, let's see. Here we go with Elton John, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. This would
Okay,
absolutely make it on my top 100. I definitely think this is Elton John's best record. There's no
yeah,
way you can't represent a list like this without something from Elton John, and
right.
this is definitely the one it should be.
Yeah, I mean, this is Candle in the Wind, Benny and the Jets, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, the title track, of course.
Mm.
Yeah, this should be on a top 100. I agree with this one.
Yeah, there's no problem with this. And actually I have no problem with the next one that I see here, Madonna Like a Prayer. Um, not I mean, I think we've talked about this before. True Blue is technically the album from Madonna with the most number one hits, but I mean, just for the song "Like a Prayer" alone, which is just
Yeah.
such a juggernaut of a song. But the rest of this record's really good. This is a
Yeah.
really good Madonna album.
Yeah, this has "Cherish" on it, "Dear Jesty" and "Oh Father," which I love both of those songs. Um, of course, the title track. I would probably go with "Like a Virgin" or "True Blue" over this one. I'd have to really go. I would represent Madonna somewhere on my 100, but it would probably be earlier work Madonna. But I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I think if I think my list would probably have to have Madonna, and this actually might be the one I went with.
Mm.
Bad Bunny, I don't even know how to pronounce this because I have
Un
failed
Verano
Spanish.
Sinti. I don't know this album at all. I'd be okay with just skipping right past this one, Matt.
All right, let's just be safe and move on. Missy Elliott, Super Duper Fly. Missy has been on my list of like I have loved every single I've ever heard from Missy Elliott, and I've never dug deeper into her catalog. And I was thinking about that fairly recently that I want to listen to more Missy Elliott, specifically starting with Super Duper Fly, because obviously that's got the rain on it, which is just such a cool song. And like you said, this is a best list, but if we're going to bring up the concept of influential, kind of brought Timbaland to the entire music scene with this
Mm.
album, and that the influence that this album had on bringing Timbaland into hip hop alone earns it a place on any type of greatest albums list, even without listening to it, just knowing that piece of history. But as good as the rain is, I have a feeling that the rest of the record is probably just as interesting and different and unique.
I would check it out. Missy Elliott is my cousin Alicia's favorite artist of all time, I do believe, and I don't know that it would make my top 100. I do like some of her singles, but cool. I'm
Right.
fine with it being on here.
All right, 74. This is another one that I think is a little too low, and I think
Yeah.
you agree with me, given that you had like 20 shirts for this band.
Yep.
9 Inch Nails, The Downward Spiral.
Yeah, this should be way higher.
Yeah,
This is a masterpiece of an album. It's a crazy album. And I think it's one of the best. So, yeah, 74 is low, but I'm glad it's on here. It should be on here.
Steely Dan Aja, I think is how that's pronounced, or it might even just be Asia. But
I'm not sure.
I just started getting into Steely Dan, and they're really good. And a lot of the songs that I like are off of this, like just on random listening on Spotify. Sorry, Apple Music. I know this is your list, but uh I'm slowly converting into being a Steely Dan fan. I know that they're kind of like a band's band, especially in that like classic rock fandom. So I right now, me personally, I wouldn't put this on my top 100 list, but I understand why it's on this list because musicians love this band and love this record.
This is only a 7-song album, and I don't think I might know it to hear it, the songs, but not.
What are the songs on it? I might be able.
Black Cow,
Okay.
Aja or Asia, however you pronounce it, Deacon Blues, Peg, Home at Last, I Got the News, and Josie.
You definitely know Peg.
Okay.
Um the it's like an instrumental piece, but you know Peg. I promise you there's no way you've been to a party.
A party?
There's no way you've been to a barbecue with a bunch of people your parents' age and haven't heard Peg
Okay.
playing out the speakers.
All right. All right.
SZA SOS. I think you're
Love this
I was
album.
gonna say you're the bigger SZA guy than me.
This album's incredible. Matt, you should give this album another try. I like it front to back. It is one of the newer albums on this list, and I think it deserves to be there. It would be in my top 100. It might be in like the 60 to 70 range on mine too. I think they got the placement and the album right. I love this. I love that it's on here.
All right, sounds good. Moving on to Kraftwerk Trans Europe Express. Kraftwerk is another one of those groups that I keep hearing that I should listen to. Just never got into it because I'm not that much of a techno kind of guy. But I mean, the name Kraft when I hear the name Kraftwerk, I immediately think extremely influential band to like a very specific subgenre of music that I don't listen to. So I guess
Well,
representation wise, sure.
early hip hop used Kraftwerk a lot, Kraftwerk samples a lot. I think that was like a commonly used thing. But yeah, I don't know this album at all. And anytime I've listened to just straight up Kraftwerk, I'm like, this is something I would never listen to. So it would not be on my top 100.
All right. Let's see what's at 70 rounding this out. NWA straight out of Compton. I mean, yeah, this has to be on this list. It's such a good record. Something I mean, it's honestly one of those albums where it's the combination of these people is pretty much greater than any of their individual solo releases for the most part. I mean, The Chronic from Dr. Dre is
Yeah.
also pretty high up there, but in general, most of these guys were never able to be as good as they were during this album at that time. And I love this album. So let's go with it.
Yeah, I mean, it should be on here. I agree.
All right. Let's see what brings us into number 69. Metallica, Master of the Puppets. I love this album. Whether you're a Metallica fan or not, this is like the Metallica album, I think. I think I even heard Krista Make say that at one point when you were asking him about Metallica, and he said like this has the songs he would want to deconstruct on that show, because you start, I mean, just the 1-2 punch of Battery right into Master of the Puppets,
do,
Sanitarium,
you call it Master of the Puppets?
sorry, Master of Puppets, and then like Sanitarium, Welcome Home is such a great song. Damage Incorporated is such a good song. I mean, this was as much as I'm like lukewarm towards thrash metal, this album was unavoidable when I was a kid. This was the Metallica album to own.
Yeah. I'm fine with it being on here. I'm not a Metallica fan, but I respect them. They wouldn't be on my top 100, but this probably should be here.
This would be on my top 100 actually. But and so with this, The Strokes, is this it? The debut album from The Strokes featuring Last Night and Someday. I'm sure a lot of people would probably rather see Room on Fire here, but I love this record.
Yeah, I mean, I just think sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, this has Last Night on it. I think that's probably it's one of the best Strokes songs, and this was the one that kind of started it all. So yeah, 68. I'm fine with it. Probably if it made my top 100, let me back up. It wouldn't make my top 100, but I understand. But I understand why it does. So we can move on.
All right. I mentioned this earlier. Portishead Dummy. This album is also fantastic.
I don't
Uh,
know it.
oh my god. See, I really got into this just a couple years ago, like that lo-fi type of like chilled out type music. So like this feels to, I'm trying to think of even like a band to compare it to. I mean, I guess a Massive Attack, which you also didn't know, but this is like just like, so actually, do you know the song Six Underground by the Sneaker Pimps?
No.
Like, take me down six underground. Da, da, na, 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 na. So it's basically a female fronted, very like lo-fi hip hop beats with like a soft voice, kind of like singing cryptic lyrics over top of it. It rules. Like this album absolutely rules. Should be on this list, would definitely be on my list. Like 2 thumbs up. I'm glad to see it represented here. Chris,
All
you should
right.
check it out.
I will check it
Um,
out.
Getting into some sad boy music at 66 with the Smiths, The Queen is Dead, which I think does have my favorite Smith song on it, How Soon Is Now.
It does
But
not. It
oh,
does
it
not.
doesn't? Well, then
No.
whatever. Fuck this album. No.
Yeah.
I
It doesn't. That's what I said. I said if it's the Smiths and it's not How Soon Is Now or maybe This Charming Man, if it's not one of those 2 songs, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 songs I want to hear. I wouldn't put this on the list.
All right, I can see the preview in the corner, and this would be on my list. It would be higher on my list. It would be in my top 20. That's
Wow.
De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising. Another one of the albums, like I said earlier, with Doggy Style, that I would put on the list of greatest, like 10 greatest albums in the history of hip hop.
Wow.
This album would be on there. Obviously, most people know Me, Myself, and I from it. Magic Number on this is really, really great. It's one of the few rap albums with a bunch of skits on it that I don't hate. Like, I actually think the skits are funny and keep the album moving a little bit. Buddy is on this featuring Tribe Called Quest and De La Soul. Just like that whole native tongues movement of hip hop is like so my shit. So yeah, this is a big thumbs up for me.
I'm not really familiar with it enough to put it on my top 100, but I'll take your word for it, Matt.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. All right. Erica Badu, Baduism. Never got into Erica Badu. I know we brought her and the neo soul movement up in a recent episode that we recorded. So I know that this is a pretty big album for a lot of people, just not a world of music that I necessarily ventured into.
Yeah, when Erica Badu is on, I'm always like, "Oh, this is good," but not enough for me to like really dive into Erica Badu. But I'm sure this deserves to be here. It wouldn't be on mine, but the people that put this list together, I'm sure they know what they're talking about with Erica Badu.
All right, let's see what is up next. We've got
What?
at 63, Jimi Hendrix Experience. Are you experienced? I mean, this is the big debut album from Jimi Hendrix. 90% of the Jimi Hendrix songs are
Yeah,
on this.
Foxy Lady, Fire.
Yeah, it's a great album. Whether you're doing a best list or an influential list, it deserves to be on both. Uh, Now, if it's just my personal albums I want to listen to, it wouldn't be on my list. But if I'm actually making a list of what I think are significant, good, great records that everyone should hear, this would be on like my 100 albums you should listen to list.
Sure, it wouldn't be on my list, but I understand why it's on this list.
So I think we might be split on this one. Tupac, All Eyes on Me. Not that I just never got into Tupac. I tried.
Wow.
I've listened to a lot of Tupac records. In the battle of Tupac versus Biggie, I'm firmly team Biggie on that one. I do think that if you're going to put a Tupac album on any list, All Eyes on Me is the one.
Dude, this is
Um,
the album with California Love on
yeah,
it, which I think is one of the greatest rap songs ever. How Do You Want It's on here. I Ain't Mad at Ya. Ambitions is a Rider. Two of America's Most Wanted with Snoop Dogg. This would be hovering down at the bottom, but I like that it's in their Apple Music best 100 albums. I think it should be probably.
and I'm not saying, I mean, even on my favorite 100 albums, absolutely not. But if I was doing a list like this, absolutely. And I think 62 is a good spot for it. Oh, here we go. My favorite. Uh
Sade.
Sade, I was going to try to prove to you that I could say it.
Oh
Sade, Love Deluxe. Obviously, I used to think her name was Sade, so
wow.
I've listened to a ton of Sade. Chris, tell us why this should or shouldn't be on this list.
I kind of only know Sade's singles and not entire albums, but I do know that No Ordinary Love is on this album. And even though it wouldn't be on my top 100 because I don't know the whole album, that song alone, I wouldn't argue with someone saying like, "Yo, if you like No Ordinary Love, this album should be on there." So I got no problems with it. Sade is incredible.
All right, hitting number 60 here with the Velvet Underground and Nico. Uh, Chris, what is your vibe on this band? Velvet Underground is one of those groups where like I got really into Lou Reed's solo stuff, but I never actually dug too much deeper into Velvet Underground except for like a handful of songs.
Blind spot for me, major blind spot. Of course, everyone knows this banana on the cover of the album. Very iconic image. It's an Andy Warhol image, but yeah, I don't know it. So obviously it wouldn't be on mine, but I think it would be on most music historians' lists. So
Absolutely. From a historical stance, this is clearly a very important record. Arctic Monkeys AM. This is another group. I feel like I always get embarrassed when we do lists like this because I realize how many blind spots I have because I was too busy memorizing Five Iron Frenzy's entire discography to get into the Arctic Monkeys. But I mean, every song I've ever heard by the Arctic Monkeys, I thought, oh, this is a really good song. So what's your thoughts, Chris? We're getting close to the 50 point here where we're
I,
halfway up the list. This feels high.
I don't know this album. I do like some Arctic Monkeys songs, but I don't know this whole album. Obviously, it wouldn't be on mine. Yeah, it does feel high. In all the history of music, you're telling me this Arctic Monkeys album that I've never heard is in the top 60 at number 59. Yeah, I think that's kind of bullshit. So we can move on.
Here's a juggernaut of an album. Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory. This would be on my 100 best albums list. This would probably even be on my 100 personal favorite albums list. Talk about just like the singles that wouldn't quit on this record. You've got probably the 3 biggest songs they've ever put out on this album with Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, and Don't Look Back in Anger. But then you've got these other deep cut tracks like Roll With It and Hello, and like every song on this was like Oasis. And I'm not even that big of an Oasis fan. I just think that when they got in the studio to record this album, they could not miss. And I don't think they've ever been able to capture that energy again. Easily one of the biggest albums of the 90s. Certainly should be on this list, in my opinion.
I would agree it should be on the list, but it wouldn't be on if it was my best. It wouldn't be on the list. I respect it and kind of like the songs more than I ever have now. I didn't like it at the time. Wouldn't be on my list. I feel like I'm such a negative Nancy about their list so far, but it's fine. It's fine. It should be there, obviously.
All right, let's see. D'Angelo Voodoo. We were talking. This is similar to Erica Badu, and just like I missed out on this entire like neo soul movement that was happening. I obviously remember the music video where D'Angelo is just full ass naked, spinning around. I don't know if that's from the Voodoo album or not, but that's basically where my knowledge of D'Angelo begins.
Yeah, this had the song Untitled, How Does It Feel on it. If I was going to go with the D'Angelo album, which a D'Angelo album would not be on my top 100, but if there had to be one, it would be the Brown Sugar album. So I don't know this album well enough to put it in mine. So we can keep it going.
All right. 56. Disintegrate. Oh my God. Disintegrate.
No,
Oh my God.
Disintegration.
Disintegration. Listen, whatever. The Cure. This album's great. Arguably in the conversation for best Cure album. They've got a couple good ones.
I got a
in the
problem
same
with
time
that.
period, but like
This is a good album. This has Love Song on it. This has Pictures of You on it. But if I just can't believe it wouldn't be Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
well, that's what I was gonna say. I think that there's like 4 Cure albums that all came out one after another where I think any of them would be valid. I think that this one just has the most stacked track list as far as hits go. I think there's like 4 songs on this album that were big hits.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, I'm cool. The Cure had to be on this list. I guess I'd have to dive deeper to decide which Cure album. I don't think it would be this one for me.
Yeah, because I'm looking here. Lullaby, Fascination Street, Love Song, and Pictures of You. Like those are all pretty massive singles. But I do agree with you. Like you have albums like the Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me album is phenomenal, and you get Just Like Heaven off of that one. There's as long as the Cure is represented, I'm happy. So
yeah, I'm okay with that.
all right, 55, Anti from Rihanna. Rihanna I've been starting to get into. You know, like I've talked about before, like there was this period right after college where I just was not paying attention to anything happening on the radio at all. And that was like Rihanna at her peak. But Chris, I think you're more of a fan. Tell me, is this the album or the wrong
I love
one?
this album. I love this album. I'm glad if I had to put a Rihanna album, this album would be in my top 100 as a favorite somewhere. And this album has Work on it. I love Work. Kiss It Better is on this album. James Joint. This album's awesome. If you haven't listened to Rihanna's Anti album, go check it out. It is great. It's a great summer listen too. You might enjoy it right now.
All right, I'll make it a point to check that one out. Jonathan Coltrane with
Coltrane.
Oh my God. You know, him and I get along. We're very prim and proper together. John Coltrane, A Love Supreme. Obviously, I don't know this record. I don't know a ton of John Coltrane stuff, but I mean, when you think of jazz musician, John Coltrane is usually one of the big heavy hitters. So I'm just going to go ahead and trust Apple Music that if I want to start getting into John Coltrane, this is probably the record I should start with.
Matt, you might not believe this, but this one's before my time. So
what? No. All right, let's see what's next here. Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street. So one of my old podcasts before my time, we did a track by track breakdown of this record. It's widely considered the best Rolling Stones record. Um, I don't know if I fully agree with that. I personally really, really like Goat Head Soup from the Rolling Stones, but this is a great album, even especially for me who did not like the Stones. This was the album that kind of made me start to go like, all right, let me dig deeper in to their catalog. This has got everything from like a song that feels like early influence for heavy metal to like some very bluesy songs to some of more of what you're used to the Stones sounding like. The irony is that I don't think that any of the songs on this album are like big hits to the modern listening audience. Like if you looked at, I remember looking at the track list being like, I don't think I know any of these songs.
Hmm.
And I think that that's what kind of made it even more exciting and different to dive in. So, not on my personal 100 favorite albums, but if I was being asked to do a list like this, I would probably say, yeah. And about 53 is about the right spot for it, too.
I'm not a Stones guy. They wouldn't be on my top 100. There might be 4 or 5 Beatles albums on my top 100, but
I was
not a
going to say,
Stones guy.
I'm very interested in the fact that there have been no Beatles so far. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. If you're
At
going to put
52, at
at,
52,
at
listeners, we're trying to keep you updated on where
sorry,
we're at.
sorry. At number 52, I mean, this album is a juggernaut for sure. It's easily the best Guns N' Roses release. You get Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, and Paradise City on here. Also,
Yeah.
like other fan favorites, like Out to Get Me is on here. Rocket Queen is a pretty beloved song from Guns N' Roses. And also, like, just the fact that they kind of walked this line of not quite hair metal and like that's how they were able to survive grunge more than like a
Did
band
they?
like Poison did. Yeah, I mean, they put out Use Your Illusion at the peak of grunge and then kind of
Okay.
self-destruct it. But I definitely think that this album should be on here. This album is really good. It's really well organized. It's an insane debut record from a band, and maybe would be on my personal favorite 100 albums list, maybe, but definitely, like I said, if I was asked to do a list of best albums, this should be on here. 52 feels a little high. I would maybe put it in like the 60, 70 range, but still like this album's way too massive and important to not be there.
Yeah, those 3 big hits alone, it wouldn't be on if I was making my favorite list, but yeah, it should be somewhere on a best list. Yeah, I agree.
All right, so here's the top of the bottom half here. Prince, Sign of the Times, an album that I think we just talked about on this week's episode
We
of
did.
of One Hit Thunder, and I think you made it very clear, not your favorite Prince.
That
Chris,
song, the
yeah,
song "Sign of the Time." This album has my favorite Prince song.
yeah.
"I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man" is on here.
So let me ask you a question. Spoiler alert: is this the only Prince appearance on this list?
No, it is not.
Okay, then I am okay with this placement. If there's
Yeah.
only one Prince album on the list, I feel like there's a very clear, stronger album.
I mean,
In my
if I
mind, but
was your
this is great.
girlfriend is if I was your girlfriend is on this album, "I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man" is on this album. Otherwise, the album as a whole would not be on my top 100. I love
Yeah,
Prince, but yeah.
but it's definitely an important album. All right, number 50, Hounds of Love, Kate Bush. Let me ask
Hell
you
yeah.
let me ask you a question. I love this album. Do you think this album makes this list if not for the last season of Stranger Things?
Um, she did get a big resurgence, but this album's been beloved, man, for a long time. It might not be at 50, maybe it would have been at like 100 or something.
Yeah.
But this album is incredible. If you haven't dug further than Running Up That Hill, the title track, Hounds of Love, so awesome. Cloud Busting is on this album. It's so good. It's such an experience of a listen. Just read into like how she made this album and stuff. It's so good. Amazing front cover of, I mean, everything about this. She's so cool.
Yeah.
I love Kate Bush.
No, I agree. Kate Bush
It'd be
absolutely rules.
higher on my list. This would be in my top like 40.
Yeah, I dove into Kate Bush more after Stranger Things, as embarrassing as that is to admit.
No, sure. No, it's not.
And I mean, this album is great. And so is this one. 49, The Joshua Tree by U2. If U2's only going to have one album on this list, it should absolutely 1,000% be The Joshua Tree. The
Yeah.
first 3 tracks alone is like
Yeah.
one of the most impressive runs of going from Where the Streets Have No Name, With or Without You, and I know these are not the exact order that it is, and still haven't found what I'm looking for. Like, those are 3 of the finest songs that U2 has ever crafted in a row.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I always tell people, check out Bullet the Blue Sky. It might not be one of the U2 songs that you're most familiar with, but if you want to know how U2 was one of the few like bands of the 80s to survive the grunge movement of the 90s, there is so much of an early grunge sound influence on Bullet the Blue Sky, with like a lot of quiet, loud, quiet there, like very heavy bass and drum driven, with the guitars more subdued. This is absolutely one of my favorite albums of all time. Would be on my personal top 100. Would be on my top 100 just influential and best song albums list as well.
I'll buy that. I would probably go both. It would probably be on my top 100 of both as well.
Oh boy, Chris, I've sung the praises of this one for
Yep.
years. I say it is the number one greatest rap album of all time, and it looks like Apple Music is somewhat backing me here. At number 58, the Beastie Boys,
48.
sorry,
48.
48, Paul's Boutique. I would keep it here. I would keep it in like the 40s, basically. This album, for what it did for sampling, the combination of the Beastie Boys with the Dust Brothers, it was a combination that only happened once. After this, the Beastie Boys started to self-produce themselves, but this record is just insane. It is one of the most interesting sonic listens I've ever had. I know I've sung the praises of this. I think Matt Milligan has sung the praises of this on our show. There's been quite a few people who have agreed that this album really is one that you don't want to miss out on. And I think it's because the vibe at the time was that it was a failure, right? Like, this,
Mhm.
no License to Ill. It didn't have like a big single on it, so it kind of flopped. And then years later, kind of got the reevaluation that it's a masterpiece. But I've enjoyed it from the second I bought it. I bought it as a completionist, thinking that it was going to be a bad record. And by like the third track, I was like, this might be the best thing the Beast Boys have ever made.
I got to dive into this one
Yeah.
more because I have heard you really hype this one up for a long time. So,
I mean, I've said before, like the sampling. I mean, this is kind of Bismarck. We talked about recently, like Biz Markie getting hurt real bad by the sampling controversy, and like that's really unfair because the Beastie Boys did a lot more damage right before that song came out. I mean, this literally ends. A track ends with them sampling the shower scene from Psycho and the girl dying from Jaws on top of each other as the end of a track, and I don't think they paid a single penny to anybody for it. So, yeah, it's why you have to pay to sample things now. Drake, Take Care. You are way more the Drake guy than I am at 47.
I mean, at 47, this I've like thought about like what the best Drake album is before. I think this is probably it. This album has headlines on it: Over My Dead Body, Marvin's Room, Doing It Wrong, Hell Yeah Fucking Right is on here, Make Me Proud is on here, Lord Knows is on here, which is funny because it's a song with Rick Ross, and Rick Ross famously hates Drake now and talks shit on him all the time. Um, you know, whatever you think of Drake as a person, I think people's attitudes have really changed about him, but it's a great, like, the pop elements are what makes it so great, and I think it's just like a lot of catchy, good songs. And yeah, I think Take Care, if I had to put a Drake album in my top 100, this would be the one.
All right. At 46, Bob Marley and the Wailers with Exodus. Now, I think excluding Bob Marley's greatest hits, this was probably the best-selling reggae album in history. You've got 4 massive singles on this one. The title track, Exodus, which is probably the least famous of the 3. You've got Jammin' on here.
Yeah.
You've got Three Little Birds on here, and you've got One Love on here, which are all just like, when you think of Bob Marley, those are 3 of the first songs that come to your mind. Um, I remember buying the Bob Marley Legend album and being like, I want to get all of his albums. And then I realized that pretty much every song I love by him was on Exodus. So,
Mhm.
not, I mean, again, for my if I was making a list of just Matt Kelly's favorite 100 albums, Bob Marley wouldn't make it, and like 4 Punchline records would. But as far as
Love
important,
that.
influential albums, this should be on here. I think 46 is kind of high. I would put this in like 70 or 80 range, but it's a
Yeah,
big album.
this wouldn't be on my list, but it should be on the list. It's one of those.
Well, I think this one's going to be on your list, Chris.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing. At number 45, we got Björk with Homogenic. This is Björk's only appearance on the list. Spoiler alert. And this is my third favorite Björk album. So I would have had Vespertine at number 1. I would have had Post at number 2. And I would have had this at number 3. And all 3 of those albums would have been in my top 100. This album has Hunter. It has Yoga. It has Unravel, Bachelorette. All is Full of Love. This is a great album of, if you go buy her greatest hits DVD of all her music videos, there's some incredible music videos from this album. And in general, it's great. It's moody. It's emotional as hell. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love this album. I love that it's on here. I love that it's this high. And I just think that if I was making my top 100, this is probably where I'd put Homogenic. This seems like the right place in the top 100. But then I would have 2
But
more
you'd have
Björk
2 more
albums
higher.
that would be
Yeah.
higher. Yeah. So they got this right, but what they didn't get right is not putting more Björk albums on this list. That's how strongly I feel about Björk.
All right. Well, at 44, we've got Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. I'm going to ask you for another spoiler. Is this the only Stevie appearance on here?
It is not.
Okay, good. I mean, Inner Visions is really good, but again, if this was on here and Songs in the Key of You was not, that would be, or Songs in the Key of Life was not, that would be a huge fumble. I
Yeah.
mean, Inner Visions is the second best Stevie Wonder record, so this is great. This is a great placement. 44 is a great spot for it. It's a great album.
Yeah, this is the album with Higher Ground. This is one when he had his streak of winning best album at the Grammys, like 3 albums in a row. This was one of them. Yeah, there should be multiple Stevie Wonder albums on this list. So no
Yeah.
arguments from me.
Talking Heads, Remain in the Light. This is the album that, of course, gives us. Oh my god, I just blanked on the name of the song.
Once in a lifetime.
Once in a Lifetime. I was going to say, This Is Not My Beautiful House.
Yeah.
This record is real. I mean, the Talking Heads in general. I mean, you could have like 5 of their albums on this list for all I care. They have so many good records. But I think this is the one that really blew them up. This is the one that probably influenced the most people because it gave them the most mainstream attention. And I mean, just for Once in a Lifetime alone, like absolutely.
I'm fine with it because of Once in a Lifetime alone. I'll openly admit I know a lot of songs by Talking Heads. I don't know whole albums by them. So I'm gonna trust that the good people at Apple Music knew what they were talking about with exploring all the Talking Heads albums and picking this one as number 43 on their list.
All right. Well, you're gonna have to tell me if they
Oh,
made the
boy.
right call on Janet Jackson Control.
This should absolutely be on this list. Now, it's probably my second favorite Janet Jackson album behind The Velvet Rope, but Control is amazing. Spoiler alert again, this is the only Janet album on this list.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
I
they
mean, that's shocking.
they
I
dissed the Velvet Rope.
literally, yeah, Velvet Rope. I would put Velvet Rope on this over Control. If you're only
Yeah,
gonna
but
have
Control,
one Janet,
let me
like,
tell you all the hits on Control, because I love telling people that Janet had more hits than Michael, which is true. This album alone, the song Control, Nasty, What Have You Done For Me Lately, The Pleasure Principle, When I Think of You, Let's Wait a While are all on this album. There's 6 hits alone on this album. Mainstream hits.
those are all big hits for sure. I just, as a cohesive album, this should be the Velvet Rope. The Velvet Rope is, I would argue, one of the like 40 greatest albums of all time.
I would
As
agree with
this
that.
list is supposed to be. So this is interesting to me.
41.
Outcast at 41, Outcast. How do you pronounce even the name of
Is
this
it
album?
Aquamini?
Aquamini. Is this the only Outcast? Because this is my least favorite Outcast
This is
album.
the only Outcast on
I think that this is a
the list.
huge mistake.
Yeah.
Stankonia or Atlanteans both should be on this instead. And actually, I'm incorrect. This is not my least favorite. The Southern Cadillac playlist music is my least favorite Outcast album. But of the three big Outcast albums, this is the one I always rank the lowest of those three.
Well, Speaker Box and Love Below would, I mean, not to be an obvious person, but I think that should be the one on here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I I love Outkast being like right in this spot. I just do not think this is the album that they should be represented with on this list.
Yeah, I don't know this album.
All right, Aretha Franklin. I never loved a man the way I love you. Aretha Franklin is obviously one of those people where I know the songs more than I know the albums,
Yeah.
but this list would always feel incomplete without some type of representation of Aretha. So I'm gonna trust Apple Music in saying that this is the album
Yeah,
that we should be listening
we're
to.
at number 40 with this Aretha Franklin album. This is the album that has respect on it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you're gonna have an Aretha album on your list, it better be the one that has respect on it. I don't know the whole album either, so I'm gonna trust Apple Music on this one. Wouldn't be on my top 100.
All right, so now we're in the top 40 with that one. So at 39, Illmatic Nas. Now I know you're a Stillmatic guy, as
I
am I.
am.
You're a Stillmatic. You and I are Stillmatic and God's son people, I think. But
Yeah.
Illmatic is an undeniable beast of a debut record.
Yeah.
Just 10 amazing tracks. So absolutely, absolutely,
Life's a
Illmatic.
bitch and then you die. That's why we get high. Because
Yeah,
you never know when you're gonna go. Yeah, it's great. And Nas, I put him up there as one of the all-time greatest rappers. He's got one of the best voices for it, one of the best flows ever. Nas is
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, this I'm no notes here. This is an album that
Oh
I
boy.
just started to dive into in the last year or two, and I
Really?
absolutely love it. Carole King Tapestry. This is another one where it's like hit after hit after
Dude.
hit after hit on this record.
Dude, at number 38, I think this should be higher. I
Oh, this should
actually
be top 20 to me, I think,
This should be
easily.
maybe be top 10, to be
Yeah.
honest. This album has I Feel the Earth Move. It has So Far Away. Man, I love So Far Away. It's Too Late.
Yep.
Love that. You've Got a Friend. Where You Lead, aka
The
the
Gilmore
theme
Girls
song
theme
from Gilmore Girls. A Natural Woman is on here. And on top of that, the album cover is her sitting by a window with her cat. You
And
cannot win me over more than that. I love Carole King. I think this is a top 10 album. I think Apple Music dropped the ball by putting this low. How are you going to
yeah.
put this low?
Chris, I think you should do a solo album one day and just recreate this photo with
I love
with
it.
your cat.
I love it.
That should be your new Facebook profile picture.
Yeah.
Is you recreating the tapestry cover. All right, at 37, the magic number, we've got Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 chambers from the Wu-Tang
Why did they
Clan.
not put it at 36?
That's outrageous. Obvious mistake there. But again, I've mentioned this hypothetical 10 greatest rap albums list in my mind. This is another one that's definitely on that list for me. And it's another one where like I've always liked the Wu-Tang Clan. I've always liked most of the guys in the band's solo music. This is kind of like when you hear a band's demo and then you hear the record, there's something about how raw and imperfect this album is in comparison to everything else when they had way more of like a know-how that just makes this album irresistible. The fact that
Yeah.
their rapping is just like a little off the beat at times and that like that Riz is still just or Jizz is just starting to like get into the weeds of how to make these beats so they're kind of a little sloppy and like it's mixed just a little incorrectly that makes it so good and they've never been able to capture that again no matter how many great records they put out. This is top 10. This should be in the top. I think 37 is pretty low, is a little too low, and like you said it should just be moved up one more spot anyway just to put it at 36. But
Yeah. Yeah, this should absolutely be on this list. It would be in my top 100, but it would be low in my top 100 because I don't really listen to it on a regular basis, but I always enjoy it when it's on. So it should be on this list.
I listen to this album way too much. Beyonce, self-titled Beyonce. Remind me what's on this one.
So at number 36, we got Beyonce's self-titled. This has Drunken Love on it.
Okay.
It has Partition on it.
Okay.
It's good. Wouldn't be in my top 100.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's see what's at 35 here. London Calling by The Clash. Obviously, if you're going to have something from The Clash on here, this should be there. I'm realizing that this is kind of the first punk anything that's shown up on the list,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
Um, which is, I mean, if this is the only punk album that shows up on the entire list, I don't know how I feel about that. But I mean, this is a great record, and this is a record that has a lot of tracks. It's like 21 or 22 tracks, I want to say, and it keeps your attention throughout the whole thing. It feels the way that punk music is supposed to make you feel, right? Like it's urgent. It feels like they have a lot to say and they're going to say all of it as quickly as they can, and it's just got that like it's definitely the best release from the Clash. It's iconic cover, iconic everything, really. So, I'm okay with this, like right here at 35. I wouldn't put it higher than this.
I like the spirit of this album. I feel like Apple Music would feel ridiculous if they didn't put it on here. It wouldn't be in my top 100 because it was just, I don't know, before my time and just not my thing. But I do like punk music, so they were an influence indirectly on me for sure. But I don't know, just not too interested in this album.
All right, 34. We've got It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by Public Enemy. Absolutely. This is the Public Enemy album that you should pick, I think.
Mhm.
It might not have the biggest hits from Public Enemy. It definitely has songs that you know, but you're not going to find like Fight the Power or
Yeah.
911 as a joke on here, but I think as a cohesive album, this is the best album that Public Enemy ever put out.
Bring the Noises on here.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Wouldn't be in my top 100, but I respect the fact that it's on this list and it's as high as it is.
Yeah, that's a really high placement. Well,
Yeah.
no, I know for a fact it's not the highest rap album on this list.
Yeah.
But anyway, 33, Radiohead, Kid A.
Best
Here,
Radiohead album.
see, and I was gonna say I disagree. I think Kid A is right where I start to lose interest in Radiohead.
Dude,
I'm way more of a the Bends
I
and
love the
OK
Bends.
Computer guy over Kid A. Um, but Radiohead should be on here. This wouldn't have been my album pick, but I know that there are people who think that this should be the number one record of all time.
Dude,
So
that song, the national anthem,
look,
that's like
National Anthem's really good. Idiotech is really
crazy.
good. Like there's
Everything
great.
in its right place is
Yeah,
on this album. This
it's a
album's awesome.
it's a good album. It's just it's not what I want from my
It would be
radio.
in my top 100. It'd be like 60.
All right, here's an album that would also be on my metaphorical 100 rap albums at 32, Ready to Die by Notorious B.I.G. This is another no skip record. Actually, that's a lie. There's one track I always skip on this record, which is the track just called Fuck Me. That's just a minute of Notorious B.I.G. having sex. I've never felt good listening to that, be it in the car, on headphones, alone. It's just very uncomfortable. But you get Big Papa, you get Juicy, you
Yeah.
get, I
Give
mean,
me the
then
loot.
Give Me the Loot, which is my favorite Biggie track, Suicidal Thoughts, which is such an incredible closing track. This is a truly beast of a day. This might be my favorite rap debut album. I would put this over Illmatic, I think.
Um, this man, Juicy, I think is maybe the best rap song ever. If it's top 3 or 5 for me, I'd have to like write it out. I love Big Papa. I love Give Me the Loot. The rest of the album, could give or take. It might crack my top 100, but it's not a guarantee. It
Oh,
should be. It should be on the list though.
this would be guaranteed in my top 100 favorite albums for sure. As would 31, Jagged Little Pill, Alanis Morissette. This is another one that I think is a no skip record. Beyond the fact that you've got the juggernaut hits that came off of this with You Ought to Know, Hand in My Pocket, Head Over Feet, You Learn, and Ironic. You also
Yeah.
had like And All I Really Want, which is probably my favorite Alanis Morissette song. Forgiven, which is an amazing deep cut on this. Not the Doctor, Mary Jane. There's just a ton of amazing songs on this album beyond
Huge
just the
album.
singles that you know. Yeah.
You'd have to be, if you're making a list, you'd have to be an idiot not to put this album on it. I don't know. Your list would be null and void if you didn't put it on there. But That being said, I wouldn't put it on mine, but it's
Uh,
still really, really good album.
this would be on my any list that you gave me. I
Wow.
would do it. Billie Eilish, "When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go?" I really like this record. I like for most people, they're gonna know the song "Bad Guy" off of this. I
Bury a
really
friend.
I really like "You Should See Me in a Crown." This was just such an interesting, strange pop record to come out at that time, and I
Yeah,
really like it. And terrifying cover. Just
I mean, it's really good. I really like that final track, "I Love You," the real
yeah.
chill song. Um, it's grown on me more and more. I didn't really care about it at first. I like it now. I think 30 is high, and I
30
know.
is really high for any recently released record.
Yeah, but I guess you're just taking into consideration, like, you're going. I hope they're going purely on the songs, and they're like,
Yeah.
I Billie Eilish should absolutely be on this list. I don't think she'd be on my top 100 yet, but I feel like I actually haven't listened to her newest album yet, but I at some point she's going to make an album cuz she's so good and so creative that she's going to release an album where I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is definitely on my top 100." I don't know if this is the one that is, but I
I think
respect that it's on here.
she's gonna top this record, in her
Yeah.
career. There's no way she doesn't. All right, at 29, Tribe Called Quest, Low End Theory, absolutely my personal favorite Tribe Called Quest record. You've got obviously Scenario that brought
Yeah.
them and the leaders of the new school together. You also get Bugging Out on here and Check the Rhyme. And then just a ton of other great songs, honestly. So I really like this record. This is again, I've mentioned a couple times now in my bizarre here's the 10 best rap albums of all time list. I mean, I lean very heavy to the 90s. This would be on there as well.
It's a feel good album to put on. It's fun to listen to. Wouldn't be in my top 100, but I respect that it's here.
All right. Let's see at 28 we've got Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. I've never been a
Sure.
huge Pink Floyd guy, but obviously this is the one to go with. It would be this
Yeah,
or The
sure.
Wall.
Sure. We don't
Um
need to say much more about this one. It should be on there.
Same with Led Zeppelin 2, I think. Led Zeppelin
Yeah,
2 is just
sure.
the right call, absolutely, if you're into classic rock. Um, Kanye at 26 with my beautiful dark twisted fantasy. I mean, I don't like giving props to Kanye for the most part. If you're gonna put him on this list, it should be this or College Dropout. Uh,
Mm,
26 feels real damn high to me. And let me clarify, if I was doing favorite albums and I had to put a Kanye one on, I'd put Graduation personally.
well,
But
what breaks my heart about Kanye is that he's one of those people I can't separate the art from the artist. I don't know why I
yeah,
can't do it with him. He let me down so bad. And but if I thought Late Registration was one of the greatest albums ever made. I
yeah. I mean,
really
I think Late Registration and Graduation are better than College Dropout, but I think that College Dropout's the more
well,
important
I think it
record,
was
but
Late Registration is 1, College Dropout is 2, Graduation is 3, and probably this one, Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is 4. I know these albums inside and out. I was
yeah.
obsessed with these albums. And um yeah, this feels too high for this album, I think. But if I was able to separate the art from the artist and just go on albums, then honestly, Late Registration be a top 10 for me.
All right. That's good to know. Miles Davis, Kinda Blue. I just recently dug into this album because it's one that shows up on every list of greatest albums of all time, when they're trying to cover everything. I know this is before your time, but, yeah, like, when it comes to jazz records, this is the album. This is the jazz album that everyone says to start with because it is. It's a great release. That's all we really need to say about that at 25, I think. At 24, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars from David Bowie. Um, Probably my favorite Bowie. It's pretty high up there with most people, I would say.
Not a big Bowie guy, but I know Starman is on this album. I don't know entire Bowie albums. Obviously, he wouldn't be on my top 100 just because I'm not a Bowie guy. Like, I'm not a Rolling Stones guy. I like Bowie more than I like the Rolling Stones. I will say that. I think he's interesting. The songs don't really do a lot for me, but maybe I haven't dove in enough to David Bowie. I always feel like he's one of those people like maybe I just haven't heard the right songs because he's definitely doing cool stuff and pushing boundaries. I like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess sure it should be on here.
There you go. 23, Daft Punk Discovery. This
Okay.
is a great. I mean, this is the Daft Punk record. If you're going to put a
Yes.
Daft Punk record on there, you got Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. You've got
One more
Aerodynamic.
time.
You got One
One
More
more
Time.
time.
You've got my personal favorite by them, which is the Digital Love Song is just
Ooh.
fucking unbelievable.
I
Uh,
love on this album, I love High Life.
yeah, there's not a
It's a
bad there's
really
not
good
a
album.
skipping track on this at all. So absolutely, I don't know if I would have put it 25, 23 on my personal list, but this definitely needs a place on a 100 list of this sort.
23 is very high for this album, but it would be in my top 100.
Yeah. Okay. Now I think we're about to hit where it's like just based on should this be this high or not. Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen. This is the Bruce Springsteen record as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't
Ah,
have the hits that Born in the USA has, but I mean, you get Thunder Road, which is in the argument for one of the best songs ever written. You've got the title track Born to Run. You've got 10th Avenue Freeze Out on here. I think my hometown is on Born in the USA. But this is a great, 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 great record.
I just can't believe it's not Born in the USA.
I honestly can, because I think that Born in the USA is like the it's one of those situations where it's like the audience's choice versus the critic's choice, and this is the more critically acclaimed of the two.
All right.
Which leads us to our first Beatles appearance here at 21 with Revolver, which is one of my favorite, not my number one for sure, but one of my favorite Beatles releases.
It
Um,
rivals number one for me. I mean, Eleanor Rigby, I'm Only Sleeping, Yellow Submarine, Good Day Sunshine. I don't, yeah, it's
one of my
top
favorites,
three. It's top
Tomorrow
three
Never
for me.
Ends. Tomorrow Never Ends with
Yeah.
that insane Ringo Starr drum beat that just continues throughout the whole song, and it's a great record. This is a top 3 Beatles album for me.
Yes, I agree
Um,
with that.
and then we get at 20 Pet Sounds. I mean, what can we say that hasn't already been said in this case?
This is
Like,
low for Pet
this should
Sounds.
be in the top 10. This should be arguably top 5, honestly, but I mean, it's got, we've said before, one of the greatest songs ever written with God Only
Well,
Knows.
back up though. I say it's low because it's always in the top 5 on these sort of
Yeah.
lists. To be honest, I mean, it has 2 of the greatest songs ever written, Wouldn't It Be Nice and God Only Knows. And it's an amazing accomplishment. But, you know, as a whole album, listening to it, it'd be in my personal top 50.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised that they put it only at 20.
It's very shocking that it's only at 20
Yeah.
on a list like this for sure.
Yep.
19 for Dr. Dre and the Chronic. I mean, another beast of a record. I think that this is correct. I think that this being above NWA and Snoop Dogg is the right call. This is definitely the best of those 3 albums that he was involved with. Yeah, I mean, this is another one where it's like minus the sketches throughout it, it's a pretty flawless record.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
It wouldn't be in my top 100, but it's such an iconic album. 19 feels high to me, but that's fine.
This one feels high to me. At 18, we've got Taylor Swift's 1989 Taylor's version. I must admit, I haven't listened to the Taylor's version release of 1989, but when 1989 came out, that's kind of when Taylor Swift started to click in my radar.
Yeah.
Because it had songs like Welcome to New York and Shake It Off and 22 and Mean and Style and all these
Yeah.
other great songs. Bad Blood was on this too, I think.
I think so. This is her best album.
This is her best album for sure. Just 18 seems like this is like, if this was at like 75, I'd be like, absolutely. 18 feels insanely high to me, above
Yeah.
the Beach Boys' Pet Sound and Revolver by the Beatles.
Being pretty lukewarm on Taylor Swift, this album actually would probably be in my top 200. And
Yeah.
this would be the only Taylor album in that top 200. I think this is definitely her best album. I understand why it's here. 18 feels high, but I wouldn't have been surprised if they put it higher.
That's
to be
true.
honest.
That's also
Yeah.
true. Here's another one that I feel like is insane. It's not in the top 10 just based on lists of the past. At 17, Marvin Gaye's What's Going On.
Love this album.
It's a great
I love
album.
it.
It's a
I would
great album.
it'd
Should
be
be
in
a
my
little bit
top
higher.
it'd be in my top 50. 17 feels high for me personally, but it's classic.
Oh no, the music historian in me feels like this is low, but yeah, I mean,
Eh,
this would be in my top 100 personal favorites, but much lower. But I don't know. It's tough because you never know. Like, well, what is the list specifically trying to say? Joni Mitchell, Blue. Never got into Joni Mitchell the way I need it. I feel like I need to, but I mean, I know that this is an album that many people would put as the number one album of all time. I hear that
Sure.
brought up frequently. So 16 feels about right for a list like this.
Okay.
This is kind of a shocking one to me just for being this high at 15. Adele 21. Um, Chris, how about you? I
I
think you're more the Adele person than me.
am I? Adele wouldn't be in my top 500 albums. I don't like Adele at all. The
Same.
only
I'm in the same boat. So okay, sure. I
skip
mean,
it. Skip this should I mean, I understand she's tons of people like her, but it's just not my thing at all.
all right, number 14, we've got Highway 61 Revisited by Bob Dylan. I feel like I remember this being, I mean, I know that this is one of his important ones. I feel like I remember this being an album
Like
I
a
liked.
Rolling Stone is on this
Yeah.
album,
Okay.
which is
Yes.
one of yeah.
Yeah, I've
I
listened to this. It's good. It's
but I'm not a Dylan guy. I respect obviously I respect him, but I wouldn't be obviously wouldn't be on my top 100. I wouldn't have even known that this was the album that Bob Dylan fans would put high. I don't know. Not on mine, but Bob Dylan's cool.
Yeah, I think we're like hitting that point where in most lists these are just like a rotation of the same tracks, which is why Jay-Z Blueprint at 13 feels so shocking to me.
Uh
It's a good album, but like for a list of this kind, this must be the highest that this has ever been ranked in a
dude,
general best albums of all time list.
I just don't understand like Izzo, H to the Izzo is
Yeah.
on this album, but you're telling me that you're going to put this you're going to put this at 13 and not put the Black album even on this list?
Yeah, the Black Album I think is his best work
Yeah,
without competition.
this is
Um
bullshit.
Yeah, that's a bad call. All right. I thought that we were only getting one from them, so I'm excited to see that OK Computer from Radiohead does make an appearance on here at number 12. Um, Definitely could see this being in the conversation for best albums of the 90s. At number 12, probably even higher than that. 12 on best albums of all time. I still think it should be in the top 20, but 12 feels real fucking high to
It
me.
does feel really high. I mean, Paranoid Android is awesome. Karma Police is awesome. But, this is like my third favorite Radiohead album. So I don't know. 12
Yeah.
feels, 12 feels, this wouldn't be in my top 100, even though I like a couple songs. Yeah.
All right, and just missing the top 10, Rumors from Fleetwood Mac.
Mm,
I mean, this is a beast of a record as well. It's practically every single track is a hit,
yeah.
and I dove into this fairly late, like maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. I really dove into Fleetwood Mac. This is without a doubt their best record,
Yeah.
and I mean, this would be in my top 100 if I was doing a list like this specifically, where you're ranking best albums of all time and not personal favorites. Yeah, this would be in the top 20 for sure.
This feels low for this actually. And
I'm shocked that this didn't make the top 10. It
it
must.
would be, it would be in my top 100 somewhere for sure. It would be on my list.
Well, surely whatever's at number 10 must be like a absolute classic, massive record. We have Lemonade from Beyonce at number 10, which is a fine record. But again, when you go from Fleetwood Mac Rumors, that's like an undeniable masterpiece in every way imaginable, putting Lemonade above it feels weird.
It's dumb. It's not a good call at all. I mean, I like Lemonade. I really like the song Formation. I love that it was like, I like the video aspect of
Yeah.
this album. Every song had a video. I don't love all the songs. I'll tell you that right now. But 10? That's so high for this.
That's really, really, really high.
That's way too high for this. I mean, it wouldn't be on my top 100.
So number 9, we have Nevermind from Nirvana. I mean, I'm an In Utero over Nevermind person myself, but I get it. This is the iconic record. This is the one that should be in there. The fact that In Utero's not anywhere on this 100 list seems strange to me, but like some British band that I've never heard of is hanging out in the top
Yeah.
in the in the bottom 80 like
Yeah.
is weird. But I mean, there's talk about like not a skippable track to be found. Like Nevermind is pretty
Yeah.
beastly.
I'm surprised it's this low, actually. It would be in my top 30 probably of all
Okay.
time. Yeah. Never mind rules.
All right, at number 8, Amy Winehouse, Back to Black, which the movie of the same name got released with almost no one really saying anything about it, so I don't think it was
I heard
particularly
it's
good.
not very good.
Yeah, I don't imagine it was. But, I mean, this is a really good album.
It's amazing.
This is I think 8 is super high for it, but it should be on a 100 list for sure.
It's in my top 30 as well. I mean, I love this album. I love her. Uh yeah, I got no issues with this being at 8. I like that it's at 8.
And I like that this is at 7. Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. Just an absolute insanely good record. Um, Probably not the right Kendrick album. I think most
That's
people
what
would
I
say To
thought.
Pimp a Butterfly,
Yeah.
but like Kendrick just being represented at all, I support.
I did
Um,
too, but To Pimp a Butterfly is the album, man.
yeah, this is where we're getting like weird calls left and right, I think,
Yeah.
on these. Although I don't disagree with this. Number 6, Songs in the Key of Life. We already mentioned it earlier, Stevie Wonder. This is Stevie's best release.
This
Um,
is
this
yeah.
should 1,000% be in a top 10 of a list of this sort. So
Yeah, that album's in my top 20 for sure. I saw him perform it live before. Absolutely should be there.
nice. Um, this feels weird to me. Number
Yeah.
5, Frank Ocean, Blonde. Never really got into Frank Ocean. Don't even get it from like a culturally significant stance, really. Like sure, if you wanted to put Frank Ocean in the top 100, I would be like,
Mm,
sure, but
let
top
me
5?
let me stop you for a second.
Okay.
I love this album. I love the song Nights. I love Solo, White Ferrari, Self Control. This album is a real journey and it is incredible. But his album before this, Channel Orange, is
Mhm.
a better album and one of my all time favorites. Channel Orange, I could easily, on my personal list, I could put Channel Orange at number 5 on my top 100. Definitely in my top 10,
Okay.
easily in my top 10. But putting Blonde here in my top 100, Blonde would probably be like number 90, and
Okay.
Channel Orange would probably be number 5.
Okay. Let's see. I don't think we have any more big surprises from here on out, really. Um, Purple Rain, Prince and the Revolution. This was the album I was thinking of when I said was Sign of the Times. Hopefully that's not the only
Yeah.
Prince representation. I mean, it's like 9 tracks, I think, and all 9 of them are
It's
just incredible.
It's a greatest hits album. It's Let's Go Crazy, Darling Nikki, When Doves Cry, I Would Die for You, Purple Rain. It is a stacked album. Yeah, it's a for me personally, it's a top 40 album. But any list like this, yeah, it should be in the top 10. Number 4 seems like a nice place for it.
So at number 3, we have Abbey Road from the Beatles, which I don't have a problem with. I like the album Abbey Road. I think what my problem is that we only have 2 Beatles albums on this entire list, and Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band isn't one of them.
How
Like,
funny is it that on like lists all the time, they always have Sergeant Pepper's as the number 1 album of all time,
yeah,
and it's not even on this top 100.
not even on it
And
at all.
And Abbey Road is here, which is Come Together, Here Comes the Sun, Something, Golden Slumbers.
I
It's a
mean, there's
great
a lot of
album.
great songs on this. This would also be in my top 3 favorite Beatles albums, but, like, the fact that it's more what's not here than this being here for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm okay with it. It's fine.
All right, number 2, Michael Jackson, Thriller.
Duh.
Again, it's of course. I've actually started to come around to leaning more towards Bad over Thriller as like
Oh.
a better overall album.
Oh.
I think the second half of Thriller loses a little bit of steam compared to Bad, but are you
I don't
going to
know
check
about
what the
that.
track list of Bad is?
Yeah, I'm looking at the track listing to see if I should say that's outrageous because every song on here is a hit. What's the back half of this? Dude, PYT's on the back half of this. What are you talking about?
I'm
Oh,
just
wait a
saying, all
sec.
right, so let's look at the track list of Bad though, right? So you've got Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Speed Demon, Man in the Mirror, Dirty Diana, and Smooth Criminal, and Leave Me Alone. Like that's a pretty stacked record as well.
You're talking about the back half of Thriller is Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, PYT, and then some other song, The Lady in My Life. But you're telling me that it starts to, you just said that the back half of this starts to slow down for you, and it's Beat It, Billie Jean, Human Nature, and PYT. Get the fuck
Okay,
outta
maybe
here.
sorry. I thought Baby Be Mine and The Girl Is Mine was towards the back half.
Those are
Yeah,
on
those are
side
in the
one,
front
yeah.
half. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying it's not a flawless record. I think that The Girl Is
Okay.
Mine is just an okay song. I think Baby Be Mine is just an okay song, and Lady in My Life, I don't think anyone really remembers that as a track on
Okay.
Thriller.
I'll give you that. I'll give
Um,
you that.
and then number 1, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this. So the
Yeah.
Miseducation of Lauryn Hill from Lauryn Hill, I think that this is a great album. I think that this
Mhm.
is a definitely in the conversation of top 20 or even top 10. Number 1 feels high. Like,
Number one, and dude, this is coming from a guy who X Factor is easily one of my favorite songs of all time, if not my favorite song of all time. I've definitely said before that X Factor is my favorite song of all time. It might be. And I own a t-shirt of this album cover. Like, I love this album. And I've seen articles in the past talking about how, this one album of the year at the Grammys and people being like, oh, that was wrong. They were off on that one. And me being defensive of it. But I will agree. Number one does feel high
yeah,
for this. But I think the thing about it is the album sounds and feels timeless.
it
Like, you
does.
put it on now and it still feels just like it did back then. So uh yeah, man, I actually think it's pretty cool that they made that number one. I like that.
I mean, I think it's achieving what they wanted it to do, which is like it's going to get people talking. Chris,
Got
real
us
quick,
talking.
it certainly got us talking for an hour and a half. The longest thing I think we'll ever release on the One Hit Thunder feed.
Do you think there's any snubs, Matt? Did any instant snubs come to your mind?
I mean, I said a few of them. Like, I can't believe Sergeant Pepper's not on there. I can't believe In Utero isn't in there.
Sure.
Actually, like I said, the fact that like Green Day Dookie isn't on
I
there, or
know.
really any punk albums but London Calling, like no
Yeah.
Ramones, like no like Rocket to Russia from the Ramones, feels like a miss. I think for the most part, the rap albums they got right.
Yeah.
There's no one where I'm like, how could if nothing else, how could this artist not be represented in some way?
Yeah.
I think they
Yeah.
got all the big ones there. Um, Same
I
with the classic rock. I think they got most of the right classic rock people and the right classic rock songs.
as we were going, every time I thought of one, I put it down, whether it was I know some of these are ones that would just be on my 100, like, for example, like Bon Iver, 22 a Million. I think that's top 5 album ever for me. Obviously August and Everything After for me, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, that's one that definitely, I mean, here's something that's weird to think about. I know it's not like our number one group for either one of us, but like no Van Halen on there feels really
Mm.
weird because like usually their self-titled and 1984 are both pretty high ranking and like greatest
Well,
albums of all times lists.
also, what about no Pearl Jam? No,
I was gonna say grunge is very underrepresented on this list, actually.
yeah, no Pearl Jam, no Stone Temple Pilots, like bands that really
No Smashing
y-
Pumpkins,
no
like
Smashing Pumpkins,
Melancholy
that's
and the
right.
Infinite Sadness or Siamese Dream, like both of
That's
those,
surprising.
like
I'm not like, I knew that Jimmy Eat World Clarity wasn't gonna be on there
no,
because
but still,
or
like
Get Up, Get Something Right Home About, which I think is, but hey, no Simon and Garfunkel on there.
that's pretty I'm like scrolling through like what are some of my favorite albums of all time, just to kind of see like what I think should be on there that's not like
I wanted Ben Folds 5, Whatever and Ever Amen to be
that.
represented on there.
That's a good call because Ben Folds 5, Whatever and Ever Amen. If I was making my personal list, I would really fight for that to be in like the
High.
top 20, top 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is more obscure, so I understand why it isn't there. But like Eels put out an album called Electroshock Blues, which is just like a 5 out of 5 perfect record. Nora Jones Come Away With Me, like the most winningest album in Grammy history, has like no appearance on there, which is like a little strange because I do think that record's still kind of flawless. Yeah, there's just it's definitely more of what was missed. But
And also, you have 2 Beyoncé albums and 2 Radiohead albums on
yeah,
here. You could have picked 1 for each of those and then maybe slid in someone like, I really think look, I know that I was the right age for it or whatever, but I think it holds up. Dookie not being on there seems crazy to me.
Dookie not being on there actually does sound crazy. I was also gonna say, again, like there isn't like an exact definition of what this list is supposed to be ranking, but if it was hypothetically talking about influential, it feels like something from REM should be on that list. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
REM should have they really
Like,
should have had an album and Automatic for the People maybe,
yeah, that
on there.
that or the one after that with Losing My Religion, like
Dude,
Out of
I
Time.
just thought of another one that's not on there. Peter Gabriel's So is not on there.
That's a big miss. I'm like scrolling through my list. Whether you love him or hate him, I feel like it's kind of weird that there's nothing representing like Dave Matthews Band or Grateful Dead or
Yeah.
anything of that. Like that, just like I feel like not representing anything from a genre that is arguably the biggest ticket selling acts in the world feels slightly off. Um,
Hey, also, I will say nothing at all from what I will call our world. Nothing
no.
from like what people call emo, pop punk, whatever you want to call it. Nothing. I thought for sure there was going to be. I thought maybe they were going to put like My Chemical Romance on there or
Yeah,
something,
I mean, Black
or
Parade should absolutely, like,
I.
in all
I'm not saying
sincerity,
that's in mine. It's
but it
not
should
even in
be in
mine. But
the bottom 20. It should be somewhere on there. There's no
Jimmy
reason.
World, Jimmy World, Bleed American was a huge album. Several hits. That album is perfect front to back. I would maybe put Clarity over it, but Bleed American, that was that's a amazing album. It's not on there. There's a lot of snubs on that list, and I think overall, I don't know. What do you give that list out of 10?
I'd give it somewhere in like a B minus C plus
A B
range.
minus out of 10?
Oh, sorry, out of 10. Out of 10, I'd give it like a. I mean, I guess a B minus would put it like a 6 or a 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I give it. And hey, Apple Music, if you're listening, I am an Apple Music user. I'm not a Spotify guy. I'm an Apple Music guy. So I feel like I can chime in. I give that list like a 5, to be honest. I
Here's
thought it was pretty
here's another one that I think like wildly missing on that list. If you're just thinking of like lists that we've seen in the past of this, like a couple ones that jumped out to me as I'm like scrolling here. Color in the Shape from the Foo Fighters is one that usually is very beloved. We said Dookie, but also American Idiot could be in the
I
contention for
know.
a conversation. And like if you're going for more of that indie stuff, like Neutral Milk Hotel and An Aeroplane Over the Sea is always in that conversation as like these incredible records. It is a very strange list. Chris, the strangest thing about that list is also for me, no Weird Al Yankovic on it. Which I'm bringing
Yeah.
up because here, this is our quick slide into plugs. Chris, I didn't even have time to tell you this. Just a few minutes before we hit record on this, I got confirmation that the first ever Weird Algorithm live panel will be happening at San Diego Comic-Con this summer.
Wow.
So we're gonna have our own San Diego Comic Con panel for Weird Algorithm. So stay tuned for more informations on that. I'm sure to bring it up on here too. And just one more album that just popped to me: System of Down, Toxicity. Like I think that that's a
Yeah.
pretty massive. If you're trying to just like, I'm a big fan of like a holistic list that covers everything genre wise the best that it can. Like you should cover some element of that 2000s metal, and that's the best album that came out of that. But anyway,
Matt, maybe you and I should get together the real best 100
ooh,
albums. We'll have
I'm
to argue about what goes where, but
we'll do that. We've got plenty of time in the 48 hours we're going to record a bunch of
yeah.
episodes. Why not? Let's take 3 hours to fight over what the 100 greatest albums of all time is. I'm down for that. Chris, is there anything that you want to quickly promote, being that we have no clue when the next one of these bonus episodes comes out? I mean, Punchline's got some shows,
We
including a
do.
massive one in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Punchline has some shows coming up in June. We are doing some shows with the Spill Canvas. We'll be in Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit, and Columbus. Those are all in June 20 something and on. All the All the dates are on our site, punchlion.com, or you can go to punchlinemusic.com. And then if you're from Pittsburgh, we are playing what should be our biggest show ever in Pittsburgh at the Roxy on November 30th. We are playing our Action anniversary show then. All these shows are Action shows celebrating 20 years of that album. So yeah, man. Hey, it was
And
fun.
another album snubbed from the Apple Music 100 greatest albums of all time.
That's right.
Oh,
right.
wait, no, seriously though. Back to what we were talking about real quick, because this is so obvious. If we're talking emo records, also Get Up Kids, Something to Write Home About.
I said that.
Oh, I
said
missed you
that
saying
before.
that one. Sorry. That's
well, when I was talking about my personal, I
Yeah.
knew that wouldn't be on a list like this. It
not
wasn't
like this, but that should be. If we're actually talking about genre defining albums, that is to me the one that you used. All right, well, guys, we'll be back with some more regular podcast content very, very soon.
Hell yeah.
It's